So I was thinking that since you were so kind as to sign off on this research project, if you wanted to see a summary of it, I need to do this anyway for my class. Not this video, but I need to practice. So I thought I would show it to you. So what I was trying to do was determine whether physical or a virtual lab was better at helping kids understand the concept of temperature and heat. And at issue was if you pull a chocolate chip cookie out of the oven, even though the oven was 350 Fahrenheit or 375, whatever it is, you will know if you are like me and you can't wait for them to cool down enough that you think it's cool enough and you can handle it. And then you bite into it and you find out the chocolate is much hotter than the rest of the cookie and you burn your mouth a little. Same with pizza, same with banana pancakes, which is a big thing here. The bananas hold heat better than the pancake. And what we're trying to do is convey to these kids why it is that even though everything starts at the same temperature, 5 minutes later, they may not be the same temperature. Now, what I have done in the past is FET. FET is it's a program by the University of Colorado that specifically addresses misconceptions in science. Very popularly, this has been studied by education research, what kids really don't understand even when they leave the class. And so I love this program. You can do things like check energy symbols and see the energy symbols in the brick versus the iron versus the water and get a real sense of something that you otherwise can't see if we do a physical lab. And you can heat this up and cool this down and take the virtual temperatures of everything and see that hot iron, when you put it in cold water, will heat up the water and cool down the iron and all this kind of stuff. So I love these things, and I did this last year, and along with some physical labs, but not the one I dreamed up. And I was still really disappointed how the kids didn't, on the test or quizzes, understand what was going on. So I attributed that to basically that these are virtual kids, right? They're playing their Fortnite, which is the bane of my existence, and Minecraft. My own children play Minecraft at home, and all the virtual games that they play. And it's not uncommon for them to see something like this is super hot and still touch it, right? And not think anything of it. So I thought they really need a physical connection. They need to be able to answer these questions that were published as to misconceptions that kids have. Why is it that if the rug and the tile in a room temperature room, literally room temperature room, should be the same temperature, why is it the rug doesn't feel cold on your foot, but the tile does? And why is it, or understanding that an ice cube with water is always 0 degrees. Once the ice cube is gone and there is only water, it can start heating up again. But as long as there's ice there, then the shared experience is going to be 0 degrees. Same with boiling water. When you have liquid and gas together, then it's 100 degrees. It doesn't matter if you heated it for 20 minutes, it's still 100 degrees. And that concept did not get through to these kids. So my proposal, before I get to that proposal, was, well, actually, my proposal was to design a lab that would physically show kids this. And maybe that would help them answer these types of questions better. So here are the demographics of the class. I used first and fifth period. And there's more students in first period. There's more females in first period. There's more juniors in first period. It's majority junior, majority female. The lunch period has more males and more sophomores. So the response rate was decent enough for the first period for me to get enough data to be statistically significant by their definition. And the lunch period, only 5 people ultimately give me a pre-test and a post-test, so I could not use the data from that. So I couldn't really show what I wanted to at the end of the day, but I kind of still did. The interesting things, though, the average pre-test was 5.93 for the first period, and that is majority juniors, which all went through earth science, who should have learned something similar to this during that class. And the lunch period was majority sophomores, and they scored better on this pretest than the junior majority class. So anyway, all right. So what I determined was we needed a physical connection. I needed to have everything in an oven here and heat that oven to, it was 90 degrees at the time. This is only showing 75 because I thought about taking a picture later. I would have boiling water next to it to show what 100 degree was, and I had melting ice next to it to show what 0 degrees was. And this was a 90 degree oven. And it turns out I had to keep that because the styrofoam started losing water and shrinking and getting weird. So I had to keep it at 90 degrees, not 100. And the point of the lab was pull out something and touch it, first of all. And, nobody wanted, when they saw 100-degree water boiling, wanted to touch that, nor did they want to touch 90-degree wood or 90-degree styrofoam or 90-degree metal. They shouldn't touch 90-degree metal. That would burn. But it turns out that they learned with my prompting is that even just putting your hand in a 90-degree oven where the air is 90 degrees or the styrofoam is 90 degrees or the wood is 90 degrees, it doesn't really hurt that bad. But yes, you're right. The tile and the glass and the zinc and the aluminum would hurt. So that was the moment I was hoping to have with this. And then also what we did was we melted a very small piece of ice on whatever they chose. So if they chose the tile or the aluminum foil or the wood, they would pull that out, put a piece of ice, time how long it took to melt, and then they could pull something else out and do it. And then they could pull. The reason for the foil and the aluminum chunk was to sort of stress to them, the more you have, the more it can melt. So more aluminum would melt ice better than aluminum foil. More wood, if they took 2 blocks of wood, could melt the ice faster than 1 piece of wood. So it is mass related as well. And that was the other thing I was trying to get through to them. So the results of first period, which I was told I could do, we had to see if it was normal, meaning just like the curve like this with the 2 standard deviations away and all that. And we had to run some normality test and show that the P was greater. I might have to check that. That might be less than. I guess it's greater than. I did this at the beach and I don't remember. Anyway, I think that's what it's supposed to be. See, look, they taught me something. Effect size is 0.52, which just means there was a significant difference between the average before and after. It's another little thing you run. And 0.2 would have been and 0.5 is, hey, that's pretty good. And 0.8 is like, oh my gosh, go publish this right now. So this was done, the first period class introduced this topic of heat, where just did this lab. That was what I did with them. And the lunch period class to introduce the topic of heat just did this lab. And then I switched it, and the first period would, after this testing, do the virtual lab, and the 5th period after this testing would do the physical lab. And then they would take this test and we would see how it goes. And so for our first period, the pre-test average was the 5.93 and the post-test average was a 7.27, correct? And as you can see, most people, 9 people did better, 2 people did the same. There were a few that did 1 point worse. Oh, that's 1 point better. That one's 1 point worse. So there were a few people who did 1 point worse. I think it was 4. 9 did 1 or more points better, and 2 did the same. With the lunch period class doing the FET, doing this lab first, the lunch period class, I only got 5 people to do the post-test with the pre-test. So even though I got about 15 pre-tests, so I can get that score, I only had 5 post-tests. So the pre-test score of those 5 was 8.6, and the post-test score average of those 5 was 8.2. So it was pretty flat. Like I said, with 5 students, you can't really say was it significant or not, but basically 2 people did better, 1 person did the same, and 2 people did worse. So as you'd expect, pretty flat. And that was my suspicion, is these kids were just tuning out, as they let me know over and over again. When I try to give them a FET lab, I think they're doing these so much in middle school and in other classes before they get to me that they're sort of burned out and they want this physical experience. So I gave it to them. So I was happy with all those results. The quotes I liked, one person said, I prefer the online lab. The FET was easier. The real lab made my head hurt. And I had taught them as part of sort of a pep talk one day that you have to be uncomfortable to learn something. If you're comfortable, chances are you're not learning anything. And the fact that the real lab made his head hurt was good. I remember this, I wrote it down as soon as he said it, because he didn't believe that he could touch any of those things in that oven and that they were the same temperature. So, and that's good. You need to be a doubting Thomas, right? But that's how you break through the misconception. And then another quote by another student was where I'm leaning toward, which is having the information from the FET definitely helped the oven lab, the physical lab, make more sense. And that's where I'm at. You need the physical, you need the virtual. The virtual can show you some things, but the physical can give you some experience that you're not going to get with the virtual. And just as an aside, this was another little lab we did, which was virtual. I tried a physical lab last year where we took ice and we heated it up and we took the temperature, and you saw where it flattened out as it was melting and where it was boiling. but it took so long, and it was really just about getting it done that the kids didn't appreciate what was going on. So this virtual lab allows you to do 3 different substances. It very quickly heats them up, within a minute, and then they have to determine the melting and boiling temperature, and you can run it again, just like physical virtual labs allow you to do very quickly. You can reset it real quick. And so I thought that was helpful. So it's not all bad news with virtual labs, certainly, but I learned that you need the physical. So I hope that was helpful. And if it wasn't, I'm sorry I lost 10 minutes of your life. So thank you again for all your support. I was so happy to get this done while on vacation, and I will hopefully see you around. Bye.